Thanks. We're gonna start recording. All right, cool. So just kind of to get the ball rolling, you released the first album back in 2005, but this is really going to be your first album recording your own material. Maybe kind of tell us about the decision to do that and how things sort of, started really to get that going.
Well, it's kind of been a long time in the making in a way. The guys in this band, we all met in 2004. I was in spring training, and since I was considered the music guy of the team, American Hi-Fi was in town playing, opening up for Fuel, the band. And so I
Right.
met Eric Gardner, my drummer, and Jamie Aronson, the guitar player from American Hi-Fi, who now plays with Miley Cyrus for the last 15 years. Um, I met those guys, and then led me to the other guitar player, Clint Walsh, later that year. And then Ed Velasquez, the bass player who's in the band, was part of Theo Epstein and Peter Gammons' Hot Stove Cool Music every year, and was
Sure.
part putting that together, and also played in a lot of different bands around town. So we all met around that same year, 2004, and we became fast friends. We hung out a lot in off seasons. We played music together. We'd play a lot of gigs. And over the years, it was always kind of in the back of the mind, like, we're going to write an original record one day. But it was kind of like, in a way, it was just kind of like a wink, wink. We don't know if this is ever going to happen, but, we wanted to do that at some point, not really knowing if that would actually come to fruition. But after making that first album in 2005, covering the bases, that was kind of presented to me as an opportunity to make a record for the first time. And so we did that with the cover songs, but I never intended to have another cover album. Really, it was something that kind of got my foot in the door musically. It was something that made sense at the time, because after winning the World Series, there just wasn't enough time for me to write
Right.
original. I wasn't a seasoned enough musician to write original music back then that I'd be happy with putting on a record. So it took all these years of kind of being friends with these guys and me playing shows around town here in Cincinnati and in other places around the country, just to feel like I was seasoned enough to kind of stick my neck out and do something original.
Cool. Cool. Now, the material that's kind of on there, is this all stuff that you guys got together and wrote, basically as a band, or did you write a lot of it maybe on your own, maybe at home or in between games or whatever it might be?
No, I didn't start writing any of it until after I retired. So
Okay.
other than one song called Higher Ground, the inception of that was in 2016 when I was hurt with the Washington Nationals in spring training. But other than that, all these songs basically came in 2018 and part of 2019 before the pandemic hit. And it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I'd say there's probably, of the 10 songs on the record, probably 3 of them I came up with the riff and wrote the lyrics, with Elliott Sloan from Blessed Union of Souls, or my buddy Chris Lambert here in Cincinnati. And then the other 6 or 7 songs, I got riffs from the guys in the band. I actually went to Los Angeles. We sat in a room, jammed a little bit. I took that stuff back here to Cincinnati and finished those songs lyrically, with Elliott and with my buddy Chris. I was trying to figure out a process to finish songs, because in my writing in the past, the only thing I could really write was very literal songs. So if I'm writing about kids, you could talk about eating your fruits and vegetables, or getting this on time, right? Or, drinking water, whatever it is, very literal. But to try to write something that you thought would be a little bit, more of something somebody would have to dive into the lyrics and try to figure out what you were talking about, and something that also would have, a melody and a hook, and something with a bridge, and something you'd be proud to put out on a real original record. I hadn't tried that really before. So this was a process of me learning how to finish songs. And once I kind of finished one, I figured once I had an idea and a riff, it took me about 4 hours to get a kind of a junky demo, but it became addictive to try to finish these songs. So I wound up writing 24 songs that got whittled down to 13 on this record, and then only 10 made the album.
Oh, wow. Now, how, being that, having written some songs myself, uh, and you sort of develop this bond with them when you write so many, how do you go about picking, oh, this one's, it's kind of like picking a favorite kid, how do you decide what's going to go on there and what's not?
Yeah, it was I try to keep it real democratic. I've always, I haven't been in a lot of bands, but even just the small amounts of bands I've been around, you can see the infighting is always a problem. And,
Yeah.
and I never could quite understand it, really, because I always thought, man, you guys are playing music, you should be having a great time together. But you just see a difference in opinion sometimes can get you can rub people the wrong way. So
Right.
what I tried to do was leave it a pure democracy. So really what I did was I had everybody vote and put in order the songs from 1 to 20, whatever, in their favorite order. And then I was going to add all the points up and see which ones kind of won. And there was probably 15 that we voted on at the time. And we kind of slotted them in that order. And then we took that into the studio and started recording them. And as we were recording them, there was one that I absolutely is my favorite demo that didn't make the album at all. Once it was kind of flushed through, it was like, that sounds like it doesn't fit in this batch of songs. Maybe it's for another record, maybe it's for another time or another place. But that was kind of the way we went about it. And, I think the stuff that really stuck out to everybody obviously made the record. You were only really kind of debating the last 2 or 3 songs.
Okay, great. Now, sort of comparing maybe this with the first covers record, was there something or maybe a few things that you had already sort of set in your mind, like, hey, this is what I really want to accomplish this time that I wasn't able to with the previous album?
Well, with the covering the bases, I was so unseasoned and so green at playing music at the time. I mean, I barely had even ever been on a stage when I recorded that album. So at that time, I went into that recording with Leland Sklar and Kenny Aronoff and Michael Landau. I mean, these guys are absolute monsters of the music industry. I remember I had somebody from Warner Brothers look on the back of that record and say, this is like having Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, and Ted Williams in the same outfield. How in the world did you get that record? So, and that was because the producer put them together. But for me, I was just trying to go in and give a vocal performance that would try to match what these guys were bringing to the table, because I was completely an unrehearsed musician at the time. With this project, what I really wanted to get out of it was telling the story. I wanted to be able to tell a story from front to back about a certain subject that would make sense to me, but also make sense to the listener. That was kind of my goal, right? Obviously, I was trying to write songs that the energy in the song, and I'd say the hook of the song, kind of turned me on. But mostly what I had a hard time doing was telling a story from front to back and not feeling like I was writing too many cliche things, or I was trying, or you were writing in a way that you wouldn't want to present it to the world, that it was just it just wasn't good enough. And so once I figured that out, I wasn't really thinking about what is it going to sound like. I didn't know if this was going to be a rock band or like a little bit of a rock country, or if it would be a folk. I didn't know what it would be. I just wanted to finish these songs. Once they started evolving in the studio and the guys brought their talents to the record and the sounds that they wanted to hear coming out of their guitars, it started coming together. And then I started saying to these guys as well, I really want to put 3-part harmony on here. I want you guys to be able to sing this live, to be kind of a throwback to the 70s singer-songwriters. And I know a lot of bands, especially in the rock genre, don't necessarily do that these days. So I really press those guys to do that.
Sure. Yeah. Now, talking about, working with the different guys and having them adding different parts, were you ever nervous at all bringing in, some of your songs, working that you were working with such high-level musicians going in, and you still considered yourself sort of newer to that situation? Maybe were you a little timid in sharing details at all or ideas at all with them?
No, over the years, I've found that musicians can be very, very insecure. And I mean, not just musicians, but I have found it to probably be a little bit stronger in that genre. In the art world, people can be a little bashful about their skill set in a way. And you find that even in Major League Baseball or across the board, people who are high level, actors and actresses, sometimes you just can't believe that Barbara Streisand is backstage, about to throw up because she's scared to get on stage, right?
Yeah.
I've never really been that way. I feel confident that if I hear something that I feel like I can do it well enough, I'm not scared to put it out there and have someone say, that it's not perfect, but, give me some feedback. And an example of that is I took all these demos to Eddie Vedder in Seattle, and I let him listen to them. And a lot of them were not flushed through completely. They didn't have bridges. I had sang them literally the 4 hours that I wrote them on the spot. Wow. Didn't even really know the songs. And I let him listen to these, and I wasn't ashamed of that. Clint Walsh, the one guitar player, just kind of said to me, like, he sent me the emoji of like the mind exploding.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I can't believe you had enough guts for your musical hero to play this stuff for him. But if you wanted to get the stuff moving, if you wanted to feel like you had some confidence in it, you're gonna have to share it. And so after sharing that with him, I felt confident that the demos were good enough that whatever we were going to do with them, that they were going to turn out to be somewhat pleasing to me. Just because I was pleased with even a demo that I was, worked on for 4 hours and went home, and I'm listening to this and I'm saying, I'm enjoying this.
Right. Cool. Now you also have Greg Hawkes from the Cars on one of the tracks. How did that was he somebody that you knew, or maybe once you got in the studio, one of the producers knew and said, "Hey, he'd be great for this"?
Yeah, that was Greg is a friend of my bass player Ed Velasquez, and Ed, is a Boston guy who's been in the music scene for a long, long time. He kind of knows everybody in town. He also runs a studio there called Q Division, and he knew Greg. And as we were listening to the record, he was saying, I think there's 2 songs here that Greg might want to play on. We weren't sure that he was going to want to play on it. It was kind of like, he's a legend of rock, right? It's like you can't just approach him with anything and ask him to play on it. So he was going to have to listen to the songs and see if he thought it was worth playing on. And so I think we pitched him 2 songs, one of them being Side Effects, that he wound up playing on. And it was so cool the day he sent me the video of him kind of like rehearsing his part. He was kind of working it out on a little piano. And he started calling the part the Twilight Zone part. And if you listen to that song, Side Effects, and you hear it in the background there, it sounds like the Twilight Zone. It's kind of really kind of creepy and cool. And I really thought it made the song come alive in the choruses. And I was just so glad that he was a part of it.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, what are maybe the plans maybe going forward? Spring's slowly approaching here. Plans to get out on the road with this.
Well, we've signed up for the 2 Innings Festival shows, which one of them's in Tempe, Arizona in February, one in Tampa in March on the 19th. And, those are big festivals that have been going on for a few years. It's a mixture of baseball and music, which is obviously right up my alley. And I've worked those events in the past as a baseball player. And this time we're just going to be playing as a band early in the afternoon on one of the smaller stages, And so we're really, we've only played 1 show as a band. We rehearsed for 4 or 5 days in Boston a couple of weeks ago. We played a kind of a little surprise show in New England, and we just wanted to see if we could pull off these 3-part harmonies and if the band sounded like what the album sounds like, right? And so we've gotten over that hump. We feel confident in what we're doing, and so we're going to play these 2 shows, and we're not really sure where it's going to lead from here. We're in talks now to try to figure out if we want to just make it a thing where we play a few festivals a year, or if there's an opportunity to go out with another band and open up. We're not sure. Part of the problem is that Jamie Aronson on guitar plays for Miley Cyrus,
right?
And the Eric's been playing for Melissa Etheridge, and she does about 100 shows a year. So between those 2 guys' schedules, it might be very difficult for me to get these guys on a full-time tour, but it is going to be nice, hopefully, to pick and choose our spots. And you just never know what can happen. Maybe somebody sees this and says, "Hey, I'd love to see you guys here or there." And maybe there'll be a pocket in the world for us to kind of play this music.
Very, very cool. So do you kind of comparing, contrasting the 2, what do you think's harder, prepping for, major league start, or hitting that stage where you're going to be for maybe 90 minutes, 2 hours?
Yeah. They're both tough. They're both difficult. I mean, just musically, a lot of times people don't realize you got to keep your voice in shape the same way you keep your arm in shape. Like, if you're not singing very often, you can go out and sing. It's not like you can't, just like you could play catch. But the chances of me going out and pitching in a major league game without taking care of my arm and not getting hurt, it's almost impossible. And it's the same way musically, especially there's a lot of stuff on this record that can be a little vicious. It's i.e., some old Nirvana stuff or some Pearl Jam. Like, these songs aren't super easy to sing, and so I've got to be in shape. So the preparation is difficult on both ends. I mean, I don't feel like music dominates my life the way baseball did in a way. Baseball was truly a 12-month out of the year taking care of my body. Musically, I can kind of come and go a little bit more from that. I don't have to be so serious about it.
Right.
But there's no doubt that, the layers of being a good performer on stage, I'm just uncovering those now. I mean, how you're moving on stage, how far away are you from the microphone? How are you holding your guitar? Because now you've got a microphone stand in front of you.
Right.
There's all these different things that are going on that you have to figure out over time. But I would say sometimes the music can be a little more nerve-wracking. And part of that, I think, is that when I was playing baseball, when I stood on the mound, I felt like I was performing for myself and my teammates, and I felt like the fan was a secondary layer to that.
Gotcha.
When you're performing musically, people have paid $20. They're really close and intimate to you, and they are only there to see what you do. So I like to say that I can't afford to give up 5 runs in the first inning musically, right?
Right.
Like I can't go out there and forget the lyrics and the chords, or just have a terrible night in the first 3 songs and expect people to ever come back and listen to this, right? Where baseball wise, you felt like it was built into the machine that sometimes I might just get my butt kicked.
Yeah, yeah, it's very less forgiving for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so cool. Then just to wrap up, Bronson, maybe best social medias or official website to keep up with everything, maybe if new shows pop up or when new singles come out, that type of stuff.
I think the best place is going to be it's so the band is called Bronson Arroyo in the '04, and that is just come to light. We couldn't think of a name for a long time, but I wanted to distinguish myself differently from the Bronson Arroyo band, which is a cover band that plays around Cincinnati.
Mhm.
But Bronson Arroyo in the '04 is a kind of a throw to, obviously we all met in '04. It's 4 guys playing behind me, and we obviously won the World Series in '04. We're all New England guys. The Instagram page, Bronson Arroyo in the '04, is probably the best place to
Okay.
find information. The album's coming out on February 17th. There's a couple of singles that are out now, and you can find the music on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to your music. You'll be able to find the record, and hopefully the Instagram page should be updated if we're going to play some shows.
Excellent, Bronson. Well, cool, man. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us. Once I get the video edited and everything, I'll let Kim know. And as it gets a little closer to the album release date, we'll get a review up of the album too, and really help get the word out there.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time, man.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.